Hello beautiful people, how are you all? I do hope you're well. I'm well, I'm back in the garden, yay, dripping. It's quite a muggy day today, it's really quite humid. And I've just done all my watering, so I'm now dripping and the plant leaves are dripping, yay! So, time for the August garden tour. Now it's the 1st of August today, so it's only 2 weeks and 5 days, 2 weeks and 5 days since I filmed the July tour. If you remember, all the tours have been getting later and later as I've got more and more out of time with my year. Sorry, excuse me, I have to mop my face. Yeah, so anyway, today we're going to be back on track doing it at the 1st of the month. I like to do it on the 1st of the month because then it's clear to me how things have gone for that, you know. So there aren't going to be massive changes. But going around watering just now, I can see there are. I can't wait to show you. But look, I'm just going to reiterate this. Bear in mind when we go into the garden. The garden's gone in late this year, very late. I was still putting the garden in on the 10th of July. Crazy late. So I think the garden we're looking at today, it looks more like my garden would normally look at the end of June, beginning of July. And now that's partly because everything went in late. We know why, never mind. But also, I've put this whole garden in. And literally since the end of June, our daily temperatures have been quite a bit above average. That's been every day. And then of course we had a week of really thumping heat, culminating in that 40-degree day. Plus, apparently there was a shower on Tuesday night while I was away in Kent. Didn't do much, but otherwise we haven't had any rain now for 10 weeks. So, you know, even if I had planted the garden on my usual schedule, I think things would just be looking a bit behind because plants, they really need rain water to get going as opposed to tap water. There's a little bit of nitrogen in rain water, which is why everything always looks so green after a heavy downpour. So yeah, bear that in mind. I'm sure many of you watch quite a few other gardening YouTubers, either garden YouTubers who specifically just do gardening or some who do gardening alongside other stuff, and I'm sure their gardens are all way ahead of mine. You know what? Great for them. Please don't compare me with other people. I don't compare myself with other people. I only compare myself with my own garden year on year. The fact is, it looks like I'm going to get a bit of food out of the garden this year. So yes, it's a very tardy garden, but it's showing a few signs of life. So I'm gonna mop my brow again, but come on, let's get into the garden and see what's been going on. Oh, the air is thick. It sort of feels like breathing soup. Never mind. Oh, I'm loving the little flowers this year. So the cosmos, I just let them self-seed. And then this lovely verbena. Now, it's interesting, just to say, I think the last time, was it the last time I did a tour? Or maybe I was showing you the tree lily. But I was mentioning how I don't ever water the verbena, and it seems to be perfectly happy and thriving in this drought year. What was interesting, when I went to RHS Hyde Hall at the end of our Auntie Teapot trip, they have a big dry garden there, and it was absolutely scattered with the Verbena bonariensis. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, who knew it was a dry plant? Well, I kind of guessed it, but I know it for definite now. That's been very happy. Right. The onions have all flopped over now. You see, oh, that one's thrown up a flower spike. I don't want that. I'll have to have that one out and eat it. It won't store well. yeah, you can see all the onion tops have flopped. It's basically telling me it's time to harvest. And honestly, this is, I think, going to be by far the worst onion harvest I've ever had. I reckon I'm going to get 30 whites, maybe 40, 50 reds instead of 80 plus of each. I honestly don't know what's gone wrong this year, but I know a bad workwoman blames her tools, but I am going to blame the sets because I haven't done anything different. The same bed prep, the same sort of planting time and technique, the same kind of care ongoing. But yeah, I mean, there's 2 rows have just really pretty much not done anything. But like I was saying the other day, this is the year to be grateful for absolutely everything we get. And, you know, you can see I've got some nice ones. They're just a bit smaller. Well, a lot smaller than I'm accustomed to. This one looks an okay size, but again, when I put it next to my hand, previous years, an onion would completely fill my hand. But never mind, small but hopefully mighty. Likewise with the reds, they, like I said, they've almost all flopped over, so I think that's going to be my next job. Get the onions lifted and see if I can get some brassicas in. I always follow my onions with brassicas. Oh, look at this sculpture. They are such a happy little plant, aren't they? A lot of you will know it as California poppy. Again, perfectly happy in these dry, hot conditions. Oh, it's so cheerful, isn't it? So cheerful. Okay, things are just starting to grow. I remembered just in time to take the halos, you know, the slug collars off these. Didn't remember in time with the squash, and I don't think I can get them off. So they're all starting to bulk up. And you can see, I think in time since the last tour, I've now got this bed mulched. I need to find mulch for that bed. This was grass clippings from doing my my edges. I haven't touched these paths or the edges for 6 or 7 weeks. I mean, it's just not growing. Poor grass. I mean, it bounces back. It always amazes me how grass bounces back. But yeah, no strimming, no trimming. But that's what that bit was. And then all of this area, that was what had been on the garlic. So I raked that up and got it onto here. And then at the far end, I don't know if you'll be able to make out what it was. This was when I took all the broad beans out. A bit of crop and drop of the broad beans, but also I raked up the remaining mulch from the broad bean bed to put here. So it's working, and I just spotted... Oh, hello! Hello, baby. Oh, that's such a perfect little one. I've stopped for a moment because I'm suddenly thinking about my tea, what I might like to make for my tea. Yeah, so you can see they are all bulking up. They're getting going, but yeah, really slowly. So yeah, let's pretend it's the beginning of July, not the beginning of August. If it's the beginning of July, yay, I'm happy with that. Next door, little bits of spinach in the front where I plugged the gaps where my cocoa noir were eaten by slugs, but I'm just getting my first few pods. Can you see the flower? It's the prettiest lilac colour. Oh, I'm too bent over. Prettiest lilac. So yes, they're all starting to pod up. Fab. Behind them, I planted all some of my peppers, and they fried and died in the sun. So this is plugged with. This is module sown chard. Lovely yellow and a red. Some yellow and some white, some more red. So these are module sown with about 3 seeds per module. And then I've just taken out the whole plug of module and bunged it in. So each little clump is probably about 3 little plants. But they are starting to bulk up. We're almost getting to the stage where the soil is being covered. This courgette behind, can't remember what it's called, I wrote it down somewhere, but this is one of the ones from Catherine. This is the yellow, obviously, and they're coming. They're all coming. Yippee! Oh, and another. That's a beauty, but behind it, that's very dark compared to its neighbour. I haven't seen that because it's so dark, so I'll have that away for definite. My spare Toms, a couple of them, I mean, not spares, but new to me this year that Steve sent me some seed. I've got Golden Sunrise and Black Cherry, 2 Golden Sunrise, Black Cherry, and they are getting going too. These are a little bit diddy, but yeah, I mean, look, fruits are forming. Oh my goodness, the sun's come out again. It's going to be a bit bright for filming. So they're a decent sized cherry, a bit sort of bigger than about cherry size. And then these look like they're going to be tons and tons of, but slightly smaller cherries. Lovely. Oh gosh, scorchio. Dry garden. Right, one thing that doesn't like heat and dryness, it's beans. So on the back I re-sowed, this is Cocoa Sophie. It's just really, really struggling to get going. There are a couple of gaps I plugged with the ones I had in Lou Rose. Yeah, this particular set of beans are really struggling. The ones at the far end of the garden are doing better, which I'll show you shortly. Yeah, they just don't like heat and they don't like being dry. So I've worked really hard to keep them well watered. And I am having the first few beans. These are Helder. Oh, this is a beautiful... Oh, what am I going to eat tonight? I want to eat a bit of everything. These are a beautiful flat bean. It's sort of somewhere between a runner bean and a French, but you can see they're quite flat. They're very smooth and they don't have strings. Yay, because I hate strings. Oh, there's a few to pick. Good. Next door to them are the Bolotti, also struggling. Oh, do you remember I had some leftover squash? There's one of them, because if we look through the poles, here are some squash. That was going to be the bed for spare squash, but there was no way I was going to get that dug prepped, planted. It was just getting too hot, so I bunged it down here amongst the beans, because frankly I don't think it's going to get too much shade, because I don't think the beans are going to grow. Yeah, Bolotti struggling. These are my runners, also struggling. I mean, I'm getting flowers now, at least. Quite a lot of flowers. You know, it's just occurred to me. Oh, and also in here, see, another of my spare squash. It's just occurred to me, even now, as I'm talking to you all, that I'm saying that everything's really struggling, but maybe I need to remind myself of the beginning of July in previous years. Maybe what I need to do is watch a couple of my own videos back of the beginning of July, because maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just I'm so used to seeing everybody else's beans, you know, right to the top of the poles and lush everywhere. But of course they all got them in end of April, beginning of May. Some of these were direct sown in the beginning of July. So yeah, maybe, you know what, I'm not going to give up on them. I haven't given up. I shall remain hopeful and just keep reminding myself we're 4 weeks behind. Some of the squash are finally starting to get away. See what I mean about I forgot to remove the halos, and the plants have got so big now they've tipped them over. Yeah, first flowers are just coming as well. these will all be male flowers to start with. They'll put the male flowers out to test for pollinators, and if these male flowers get a tickle from a bee, the plant will go, oh, okay, let's put some females out. So these two, fine. Those two, a little bit tardy, but they're happening. Actually, just before we go to the tomatoes, we'll carry on with squash, which are in the next bed. This little scrap on the end, that's a replacement. And it was pot bound, sitting in a pot for ages, which is why there's such a discrepancy with these. These are all butternut. Those are all butternut. Yeah, they're finally getting away. You can see they're all putting out their vines, that one, and that one obviously is heading towards the path, so I might need to bring it around a little. Gosh, it's suddenly so bright. I'm not sure how much you'll see. That was also what's the word? I can't think of the word. I was going to say a refill, not a refill, a replacement for one that just shriveled up and died in the heat. The Long Island cheese starts here and is going over there. This is one of the Muscat de Provence, all the way here. Ah, brilliant. So this is the one, let me show you in here. Do you remember, this is the one I snapped almost clean in half, almost. I mean, it was just, dangling by a thread. And the lovely Heather suggested, cover it with compost, get it covered over, and it'll sort of root itself again. And look at it, it's doing great. Thank you so much, Heather. I would never have thought to do that because I'm always so paranoid about stems rotting, but yeah, it's worked a treat. And that, on the end, that is another Muscat. So yeah, you can see they're really starting to get away. Flowers are forming, you see. So again, I remain hopeful. Now the tomatoes. The tomatoes are, I'm going to suggest, more normal, more akin to a normal year. Because, a couple of reasons. One, I sowed them at my usual time. I'm going to just stand in the shade of the raspberry. I sowed them at the normal time that I always sow them, which was, around about the middle of March, beginning of April, at home. And then potted them on into good sized pots where they sat. So they were a bit pot bound, but I was pretty sure that as soon as I got them into the ground that they would be happy and they'd catch up. And I want to give you an idea of height. That is above my, that's above my hip height. So I would suggest that they are now, 3.5 feet, 4 feet tall, doing great. So this side, this entire row is Gardener's Delight. And I'm getting all my trusses are coming. That's the first truss, another truss, and then you can see that's the third truss forming, and here's my fourth truss forming, and here the very, very, very beginning of my fifth truss. So yeah, I'm happy, pleased with how they all look. I think they've all, but one plant, they've all got at least their first and, you see up and under there, second trusses have come. Great. So yeah, Gardener's Delight. I just spotted. Shoot, out you come. Oh, and there, and there. Chuck it on the ground. So yeah, I'm pleased with how they're going, and also as they're climbing up and up and up, you can probably see now how underneath for each plant, another lovely, there's tons of fruit coming. I'm chuffed. But all the leaves below the first trusses have now been stripped. It's all part of our sort of blight prevention, hygiene, so that any blight spore on the soil, as I water and the water splashes, the water hasn't got any foliage, the splash has got no foliage to land on. Okay, good. So that's the Gardener's Delight. They're a banker for me. I grow them every year. What's new to me this year, though, is this gorgeous row of Guernsey Toms. Oh, I was watching Paul the other day and he was talking about there's a difference between Guernsey Toms and Guernsey Island Toms. Did he actually explain the difference? I can't remember, but anyway, new to me this year, Guernsey Toms, and again, lovely little fruit setting. I had no idea what to expect. Never grown them before, but aren't they pretty? They're so pretty with that wee stripe to them. Lovely. And again, I think most plants have got at least the first 2 trusses formed. There's a couple of them with 3 or 4 trusses. I mean, obviously they're teeny tiny toms at the moment, but plenty of them. Lovely. I just love the markings of them. Isn't it lovely to try something new, have no idea what to expect, and then just have such a delightful surprise? Fab. Okay, so that's the Guernseys. Pleased with them. Some of the Guernseys are actually even taller than the Gardener's Delight. But yeah, I think everything's at around about the 4-foot stage now. So I'm pleased because obviously with height come more trusses. Okay, next door the Amish Paste. Some of you may not have grown them before, but do you remember what I was saying when I was doing tomato cares about how droopy looking the leaves are? It's really quite disconcerting because they look like they need to be fed or watered or something, and it freaked me out the first year I grew them. But actually, it's just their habit. But again, lots of, oops, come this way, lots of beautiful fruits forming. It's got this lovely sort of almost heart shape. It's sort of somewhere between a plum and a beefy. Gorgeous. Yeah, lovely. Nice size, great for sauce making. And, well, they're sort of beautiful to look at on the plant. Can you see what I mean about it? They're sort of almost heart-shaped. Can't get it in shot, but a slightly pointy bottom and a round top. This one's a bit elongated. Gorgeous. Oh, wow, folks, it's getting hot again. And then behind them, what have I got here? Oh, yes, it's the Rose de Berne. So, what I've found in previous years is the Rose de Berne are the ones which seem to just come much later than the others. So, this is worth bearing in mind, actually. They are a really, really gorgeous tomato, whether you're having them raw, big, chunked up in a salad, or whether you're having them cooked for sauce, whatever. They're lovely for both. But because they do seem to come much later, I don't think they're the ideal the ideal tomato for growing outdoors in the UK, just because of that risk of blight. I think if you've got a glass house, great, because you can control the environment a bit better in there, keep those spores off them. But I am getting fruit. Let me show you here. I think they all have... Oh, that's so much better when the cloud cover comes, isn't it? It's not so bright that we can't see anything in the brightness. Yeah, I think they've all got at least one truss, one lot of fruit coming. But you can see it's going to be a big tomato, but at the moment, let me put my hand in so you can see, they're really tiny. I mean, they're super duper tiny. So yeah, certainly give them a go, but I would say probably better if you're in the UK, especially if you're in a really wet part of the UK, that they're better suited to growing under glass. So that if blight comes outside, you've still got a chance of getting some inside. So I think so far in the garden, you know, tomatoes, squash, yeah, I'm staying hopeful. Beans, yeah, I'm going to stay hopeful. Now this bed has filled up a bit now. This was Coco de Pampol. I lost almost my entire first sowing to slugs. I think I had about 10 plants remaining. Those are obvious because they're the ones, which have started to flower. So I re-sowed. Let me just show you along. So all the little plants are the re-sowings, and any plants that have got a flower or two on with the initial sowings. But look, I just want to show you. Firstly, I mean, the flowers, pretty little things. But can you see? Look, there's the first pod forming. I mean, it's tiny. So I will have pods. Now in France, in Pampol, they will be harvesting from the end of August. I won't. So I did a second sowing. I've got loads of them up. Brilliant. It's going to be a super late harvest, but you know, a harvest nonetheless. Great. With the second sowings, I lost even more to the slugs. So what I did was I plugged the gaps, and this is the module sown beetroots. So, each little clump. I mean, these are already fattened up in the last 2.5 weeks, but each little clump will have about 2 or 3 beetroot in. You can just see the beetroots are just starting to form. I mean, they're about the size of marbles at the moment. But yeah, as they get bigger, because they're in clumps, and like I say, each clump is maybe 2 or 3, possibly 4. What I will do is, when I harvest, I'll just take the biggest from each clump, and that sort of acts by way of doing that thinning. I'm thinning at the same time, and eventually there'll just be 1 in each clump, and those will kind of hopefully go into winter. Oops, let me just, I don't know, with this light today. Oh, hey, lovely. There's always, I thought I had the whole site to myself, but one of my chums has just arrived. What I wanted to do was come around here to see if it was a bit more obvious. Let's get right in there so you can see. Oh, look, 2 little teeny tiny baby beetroots forming. Lovely. So that was the thing about the, you know, my chuck it all in day. You know what, if you've got a seed that's got even half a bit of life to it, just chuck it in somewhere, or seedling, I mean, just chuck it in somewhere. And the other, I've got chuck it ins everywhere. Okay, so we've looked at the squash there. Let's have a look at this last bed. Now, isn't that a jolly sight? You won't believe it. It is a Monday today, Monday the 1st of August. On a week Sunday ago, before I was due to have my auntie teapot trip, I came down here on the Sunday morning and I harvested the lot. Absolutely everything that was open I harvested. And look at this, 1 week later, I need to get harvesting again. Good stuff. Right, never mind the calendula though. The parsnips, you know, where I've thinned, that's great. They're really kind of getting away. But we're in with the parsnips here and here and here, and then here, and then here on the end. Oh my goodness, they were such little scraps. This is all spinach. It's a perpetual spinach, so I'll just use it as a cut and come again. Keep taking leaves, but leave the whole plant in. So yeah, you know, they're being a great way to plug up the gaps. They're not getting in the way of the parsnips. And I'll have some spinach. Yummo. And then another pluggy. Let's go round actually. But in here, this was the Rockencore. Again, it was utterly decimated by slugs. I re-sowed Some of them survived. Let's go round there actually. Oh, sorry, wobbly legs. Yeah, so some of the second sowings survived. Actually, 1 or 2 of the first sowings survived, and ta-da! Fantastic. So this is one that I eat fresh for the whole pod. We're getting to that time of year, or at least I am in my garden, where I always need to check every day. There will be things to pick and eat. But yeah, after the second sowings had come up, being demolished or whatever was left, wherever there was a gap, couple down there, I've just plugged them with chard. The chard will eventually get ginormous and take over, but before it does, I will have had the beans away. Yay for the beans. I self-seed nasturtium. I get self-seeded nasturtium all over the garden. If they're in the way, I just yank them out. If they're not in the way, like this, I leave it be. And then once the seed pod forms on each flower, before the seed pod goes dry, oh, busy bees in and out. Where are you going? You're in there. Happy scoffing, busy bee. Yeah, before the seed pod dries, while the seed pod is still green, that's when I'll harvest them to pickle them. It's one of the only pickles I like. But I will have pickled nasturtium seed as a sort of free version of capers. Yum, yum, yum. The chickpeas are looking okay. It looks like I'm losing another plant there. I lost 2 plants on the end. They just shriveled up in the heat, and yeah, they cocked it. But look, tons and tons of pods. It'll be soon time to start checking them. Do you remember when I was saying about checking with the light behind them to see if the pea within is big enough to warrant harvesting? Oh, I can't wait. I'm getting happy now because the first few nibbles are coming out of the garden. Oh, happy days. Okay, so these beans are doing considerably better. But let me explain first. On this side, these were the Madeira Maroon I started in pots about the end of May. And these were pretty much the only ones that survived the slugs, so they ought to be there. Ideally, they would have been started a whole month earlier. They weren't. Never mind, they're coming. Then, and they're at the same height almost, at this end, this is the Churchill Black, which all got completely destroyed. So this was direct sowing. This is seed into the ground. 3rd week of June. So, yeah, it was after I come back after COVID that these went in, I think. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? So this is maybe 5 weeks ago that they were sown. And they're doing great. Look, I do apologise for the lighting today. And it makes things a bit tricky, doesn't it? Now this side, all the way to the top and beyond. I've already had to nip the tops out. These are the beautiful, my favourite gigantes, and I absolutely adore these. Oopla! Stop shaking at these wee flowers. Isn't that a beauty? So pure, gorgeous. But again, these are these were seeds. These were seeds going in the dirt sort of 4 or 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks ago. Brilliant. Now the other thing here, do you see, there's one here. And let's look at this one on the end on its own so you can see it a bit better. This is a weed. I think most people know it as fat hen. Some people call it goosefoot, and I guess from the shape of the leaf, Now, you know I'm normally quite thorough with my weeding. I've left these on purpose because I eat them. They are, oh, see, this one's going to seed, so it might be a bit too late. It'll be a bit bitter once it starts to go to seed. But it's very closely related to amaranth, quinoa. You can see that, can't you? Yeah, it's of that same family, but I like it for the leaves. When they're young and tender, just have them, you can't make that out in the light, can you? Let me show you this one again. Yeah, when the leaves are really young and tender, raw in salad, if it gets a bit bigger and a bit tougher, just bung them in a soup. But again, you know what? It's free food, isn't it? Never look a gift horse of free food in the mouth. Boy, oh boy, it's getting hotter by the minute. Now, next to it, new potatoes. You can see they've completely died back now. So I'm going to get harvesting. I dread to think how rock hard the ground is. Next door, the main crop. These poor things are starting to go over as well because partly I haven't been able to keep on top of watering them. In all honesty, because I will start my watering at the top of the garden. For anyone who doesn't know, who's not been watching my videos for very long, we don't have taps here, so we don't have hose pipes, so we have to go up there, round the corner, there's a tank of water, dip our watering can in it, bring it back to the garden, put it on the plants, go back up there, round the corner, put our watering can into the tank, get some more water, come back to the garden, put it on the plants, and repeat that about 50 times. And it takes about an hour. And I find it exhausting. I mean, particularly so this year because it's just been non-stop. So, as a result of that, for the last couple of weeks, I just haven't been watering the spuds. I just gave up. It's just too much hard work. So hopefully there'll be something under there, but maybe they'll be a bit smaller than normal. But you know what? I don't care. I got tired. Oh, but I never get tired of that sight. The lavender. Let's go around there. I think I'm going to harvest it quite soon, actually. Now look at this verbena. It's reached about 7. Yeah, it's about 7 foot now. The rhubarb, which you saw me harvesting a few days ago, you'd never know. So many more shoots have come up. The blueberries, which I thought I'd stripped. Oh, sorry, Buzzy Bee. Head butted a bee. Yeah, I thought I'd stripped my blueberries. I keep seeing a few more. Oh my goodness. Oh yes, and in the fabric bag bucket, growing bucket thing, I took all my peas out because they were completely dead in the heat. And this was some spare lou sown beans. And I can tell that they were gigantes, so I just shoved them all in here. They are an absolute tangled mess, but I thought, well, you know what, if nothing else, it's a bit of greenery on the deck, which I can later on chop down and make compost out of. You know, the compost was in the bag anyway. It didn't cost me anything. Look, so lordy. Yeah, I think I'm going to get on with my lavender harvest quite soon. Gary's I shall leave a little bit. But this is an area, I mean, it's just an absolute mess. So much tidying to do, some weeding. The deck is a mess. It's been a year. I'm just going to come over here and lean on my post. It's been a year in a way, I suppose you could say. And I'm just going to sit on the girl's trunk of doing. I've done the bare minimum, you know, to feed me. This is a garden with no frills this year, absolutely no frills. But you know what? Look at it. It's okay. It's going to do me. And there's food here. Like the sign in the shed says, everything is going to be okay. So all the prettifying and tidying and tarting Oh gosh, it is a mess, isn't it? If it happens, great. But if it doesn't happen, I ain't sweating that small stuff. I am sweating though. Right, my lovelies, thank you so much for hanging out with me in the garden today. I will see you all again really soon, I hope. But in the meantime, look after yourselves. Whee-wee, look after each other. And find a nice shady spot to sit and while away a few minutes with this lovely gentle breeze if you're having it too. Cheerio.